Excellencies, esteemed members of this Consular Corps, friends, ladies and gentlemen. Tonight, we will have two speakers as our guests for this evening's event. First speaker will be our good friend, Commissioner Ernesto Ferdinand Maceda Jr. Commissioner Ernesto Maceda Jr. heads 7 reform initiatives of COMELEC: Contra Bigay, COMELEC Academy, Reorganization and Reclassification, COMELEC Reports, Bangsamoro Study Group, Environmentally Sustainable Elections, and Task Force SAFE. Commissioner Maceda also serves as Vice Chair of the Steering Committee of the 2025 National and Local Elections, as well as the Office for Overseas Voting. He will chair the Steering Committee for the 2028 presidential elections. Previously, in the House of Representatives, Commissioner Maceda was Chief of Staff of Speaker Arnulfo Buentavella. In the Judicial Department, he was appointed by the Supreme Court and Bank to the Mandatory Continuing Legal Education Governing Board. He served on the Board of Trustees of the Philippine Judicial Academy. Commissioner Maceda also held several leadership positions in the Academy. He was the Executive Vice President of Pamantasan ng Lungsod ng Maynila. He was the longest-serving Dean of the PLM College of Law. He was later appointed University President of Universidad de Manila. Commissioner Maceda obtained his AB Political Science degree from UP Diliman, his law degree from Ateneo, his LLM from Columbia University. He's a top-notcher of the Philippine Bar and a member of the New York State Bar. Until his appointment as commissioner, he was a widely read, independent-minded columnist for the Philippines. Let us welcome our guest, Commissioner Ernesto Ferdinand P. Maceda Jr.
Thank you very much. Good evening, everyone. Let me first greet Undersecretary Gary Domingo, of course, Chairman George Garcia, who I see every day, and those who signed the invitation, Dean Fabio Pompetti, General Consul of Belgium, Vice Dean Agnes Huibonhua, and Jesus Pineda, Chair of the Program Committee. Magandang gabi po sa inyong lahat. It's a privilege to address such a distinguished assembly of diplomats and international representatives. Personally, the added incentive was the summons from Tito Sosing, which we could not really deny or decline, he being one of the long-time friends of the family. His wife, Tita Marites, was a member of my mom's entourage at her wedding. Tonight's event, but actually we've been introduced to many of you at your visits to the Commission on Elections. And I, with my fellow commissioners, have met and worked with our counterparts from your election management bodies or commissions at conferences and observer missions both here and abroad. Commissioner Garcia has not met anyone except those who have come here to visit him, because this man has taken a grand total of only one foreign trip in his entire term as a chair, which is good, because the moment he leaves, there will be at least a 25% drop in our daily news content. Madam Ambassador from Romania will attest to that. We expect the pandemic of withdrawal symptoms to last until it gets back. So tonight's meeting validates the proposition that elections are not merely national events. They are a global responsibility. Challenges in electoral transparency, sustainability, and inclusivity, these exist in every democracy. Tonight, I am front man for the man of the hour, so that makes me the man of the minutes, so I will embrace my role. I will highlight only 3 critical initiatives that reflects the COMELEC's commitment to democratic integrity, to environmental responsibility, and to voter protection. First, the Committee on Contrabigay. Democracy must be built on free choice. Yet the menace of vote buying continues to undermine the credibility of elections everywhere. The Committee on Contrabigay literally meaning against payoffs, is COMELEC's strongest effort yet to combat vote buying. It follows a multi-pronged approach: deterrence, enforcement, and prosecution. And the means we chose include decentralizing these efforts down to the regions and the provinces, because unlike several of your countries, we only have one constitutional centralized election commission. In other commissions, in other jurisdictions, there may be electoral bodies in every province or every region. Here, there's only one. So we decentralized through our regional offices and provincial offices these committees on Contrabigay and complaint centers. So you do not have to trek all the way to Manila or to Imperial Manila just to bring your complaint. Number 2, we monitor digital transactions, which has become the new way of buying votes through e-platforms, online banking. I don't know if it happens in your countries, but it has become very prevalent here in the Philippines. Number 3, through voter education campaigns. And number 4, through the heavy-handed use, I will concede it's heavy-handed, use of disputable presumptions so that it becomes easier to prosecute cases of vote buying. Regarding the growing use of digital wallets in illicit transactions, we have partnered with our financial institutions and the e-platforms themselves to enforce transaction limits as we approach the elections. Even those of you who are using GCash, PayMaya, the local officials, as the election day then that's it for the day. That is part of their cooperation and collaboration with us to deter this kind of electoral fraud. This year, we're also proud to say that we're addressing not just traditional vote buying, but also the scourge of abuse of state resources, public funds, government facilities, state influence, the most popular of which is the social assistance programs, which of course we have to balance as something that is needed by our populace, but we have to balance it against the fairness and impartiality of elections, which we are tasked to ensure. These should never be used for political advantage, and we are moving to make sure that that is what happens. So these efforts build institutional trust in our agency and procedural trust in our processes. It strengthens enforcement and makes vote buying not just illegal, it makes vote buying ineffective. The COMELEC's mandate, as in any other country, the Electoral Commission's mandate may be simply to count the votes, to manage the elections, to conduct clean, honest, and orderly elections. But we choose under this man to go further, to inspire confidence, to nurture trust, and to strengthen our collective democratic values. Now, number 2, let's talk about the environmental impact of elections, which is often overlooked. We cannot ignore the massive amounts of campaign waste, plastic tarpaulin posters, non-biodegradable materials that flood our communities every election cycle. The Commission recognizes that there is a need for a process that upholds environmental integrity so that we ensure that democracy and sustainability go hand in hand. We all know the ecological toll of elections: resource depletion, waste generation, pollution, and violation of several election laws. This is a multifaceted challenge that calls for urgent and collaborative action. So what we did in the COMELEC to mitigate these impacts is we put up a multi-stakeholder committee on environmentally sustainable elections, or SESE. And this has mandated policies, among others, that require the use of recyclable, biodegradable, and eco-friendly campaign materials, the ban on single-use plastics and hazardous substances, compliance with local ordinances on the use of plastic and other similar materials, the use of recyclable materials such as cloth, paper, and cardboard for our posters, the requirement that printed campaign materials must contain the phrase, "This material should be recycled or disposed of responsibly." And number 6, post-election clean-up efforts. We task the candidates themselves to clean up their mess, and including the repurposing of all these materials they regenerated. This we are doing in partnership with the Eco Waste Coalition. And finally, third, well, a true democracy is one where every citizen can vote without fear and without intimidation. However, election-related violence and disenfranchisement, it remains a reality for us here in the Philippines. This is why the Commission on Elections has launched the task force on safeguarding against fear and exclusion in elections, or Task Force SAFE. This is to ensure that marginalized communities, vulnerable populations, and at-risk voters are protected. This is a groundbreaking initiative designed to protect the integrity and inclusivity of the electoral process. The marketplace of ideas is more vibrant, as we know, when voters freely compete for space. And this initiative is reinforced by our resolution on anti-discrimination and fair campaigning guidelines, which penalizes discriminatory acts, including baseless labeling or branding, including categorizing individuals or groups as vocal dissenters, activists, terrorist sympathizers, or members of subversive organizations when you do this without evidence. Because these tactics create an atmosphere of fear, discourages participation, and compromises the safety of candidates, supporters, and voters. Okay, so that's my brief front act for the Man of the Hour. On behalf of the Commission, we are deeply grateful for your continued partnership in upholding the values of electoral integrity, inclusivity, and environmental sustainability in the Philippines. Magandang gabi po sa inyong lahat, and maraming salamat po.
Thank you very much. And now to introduce the second speaker, may I call on Pasdi Susing Pineda.
Excellencies, esteemed members of the Consular Corps, friends, ladies and gentlemen. For our second speaker, and our special guest of honor, the Honorable George Erwin Garcia, who is the 23rd Chairman of the Commission on Election. His career in the Commission has now come full circle. Prior to his present appointment, Chairman Garcia had a short yet productive stint as a commissioner. After learning the ropes and familiarizing himself with election laws, Chairman Garcia left public service and established his own firm, the GEG Law Firm. It became one of the most sought-after election law firms in the country, as its name consistently appeared in various landmark decisions on election law. The legal profession has long acknowledged Chairman Garcia's ability to craft some of the most thought-provoking legal arguments. He represented the most influential political figures and showcased his legal expertise before the Supreme Court, Sandigan Bayan, Presidential Electoral Tribunal, Senate Electoral Tribunal, and the House of Representatives Electoral Tribunal, COMELEC, and many others. With more than 2 decades of extensive legal experience under his belt, Chairman Garcia is equipped with an in-depth knowledge about the Philippine electoral system. He has gained a panoramic understanding of COMELEC and the way the institution operates inside out, from grassroots challenges to broader policy issues that are part and parcel of the country's electoral management and administration. Chairman Garcia's leadership is marked by a strong commitment to upholding democratic processes in pursuit of a robust, fair, honest, orderly, and credible electoral system. Our guest of honor is particularly committed to work on bringing the Filipinos' trust and confidence in the Commission. And as a catalyst for change, they prioritize the enhancement and modernization of COMELEC's electoral processes by leveraging technical and technological advancements. He introduced innovative solutions that provide the rule of law in the execution of COMELEC's constitutionally mandated duties. With this, local and international bodies and institutions started to recognize the transformation in the COMELEC. Our guest of honor leadership carved out a brand new reputation for COMELEC, receiving prestigious awards abroad since his chairmanship. Chairman Garcia is also one of the most prolific legal academics and educator of his time. He reached the peak of his academic career when he served as the Dean of the College of Law and Law Center of the Pamantasan ng Lungsod ng Maynila. Excellencies, esteemed colleagues, let us give a warm welcome to Honorable Attorney George Erwin M. Garcia, Chairman of the
Your Excellencies, Your Honors, Consul Pineda failed to mention that Commissioner Maceda is actually the son of a great statesman, the former Senate President Ernesto Maceda. You see, handling the Philippine election is actually a walk in the park, Jurassic Park. Actually, your Philippine Commission election received recently 4 international awards, the most important of which was the Electoral Commission of the Year, vesting about 120 countries worldwide. And so that's actually, we believe, a recognition of what we are perhaps doing, something good in the Commission election of the Philippines. We likewise received an award, a so-called Ergonomy Award. During the first time that we heard such kind of award, we wondered what is meant by Ergonomy Award. So it means actually something that will enhance our greater voting experience. So we received that award, 4 awards including electoral adjudication and the other one. And likewise, your Philippine Electoral Commission was elected, thanks to your country's representatives, as the vice chairperson of the World Electoral Bodies, and likewise the vice chairperson of the Asian Electoral Association, by which by 2027, the Philippine COMELEC will become both the chairman of these 2 electoral bodies for the first time, a historic first as far as the Philippine Electoral Commission is concerned. You see, right now we have 68,431,000 more or less voters in our country. And we are going to elect this coming election of May 12, about 18,280, filling up 18,280 positions. And we have 44,000 candidates vying for the different positions from senators down to the last councilors. We have almost 66 candidates for senators and 155 candidates aspirants for the party list representation. Try to imagine that numbers. And so we are likewise having our what we call as overseas voting. For overseas voting, actually, Yusek Domingo is the one heading the DFA's initiative for overseas voting. We have more or less 1.3 million overseas Filipino voters. And for the first time, for your information, Your Excellencies, we are going to offer internet voting to our Filipinos abroad for the first time. We found out that after conducting in-person voting and mail-in voting for our Filipinos, it resulted to a less than number of percentage of voters turn out. In fact, just last election of 2022, it just resulted to about 40.59% voters turn out. Yet we spent about 600 million pesos just to allow 600,000 Filipinos to vote during the elections for entire month before the election in the Philippines. Now, we are going to allow our Filipino compatriots in 74 posts abroad to vote using the internet. Just by using their cell phones, laptops, and iPads, they can already vote. In fact, we already started our pre-enrollment just the other day, and it now resulted to about 10,000 Filipinos enrolling in our system. We're hoping that if internet voting will become successful, so long as it is credible, reliable, and secure, we will be able to conduct internet voting likewise in the country. For your information, likewise, Your Honors, Your Excellency, we are going to allow persons deprived of liberties, those who are incarcerated, waiting for a final judgment, those who are facing court cases, to vote in Philippine election. We have a recent Supreme Court decision in the case of Santiago versus Comelec, which will allow those who are in prison to vote in Philippine election, national and local. We have local absentee voting likewise. Presently, we have more or less 69,700 local absentee voters. What do you mean by local absentee voters? Those who are members of the armed forces, the Philippine National Police, those who are frontliners serving the medical institutions in the Philippines, and likewise those who are members of the media to vote 1 week ahead of the election of May 12. And for the first time in Philippine electoral history, we are going to allow senior citizens, those who are members of the PWDs, persons with disabilities, and likewise the heavily pregnant women, to vote as early as 5 o'clock in the morning up to 7 o'clock, exclusively for them, so that they will not be joining those who will be voting from 7 o'clock in the morning to 7 o'clock in the evening, just for them to be able to vote with ease, so that they will not be hurt. And that is how we care for our vulnerable sectors. In fact, no member of the senior citizens group will be voting on the second floor or even the third floor of a building just to be able to vote. We reserve for them a priority polling place at the ground floor of each and every school buildings in the entire country. They shouldn't be allowed such kind of problematic situation, but they will be going upstairs just to be able to vote. The members of the indigenous peoples, for your information, we have more or less 580,000 members of the indigenous peoples. We are bringing to them our polling places. Before, they have to walk number of hours just to reach the polling places to be able to vote. This time, the voting places will be brought to them at their own communities. That is how we should be treating those who have been there before us, the members of the indigenous peoples. And of course, as Commissioner Maced have pointed out, we are going to put in place a system in order to avoid and prevent discrimination for purposes of the election, such as anti-discrimination on simply because of sex, because of your status in life, because you are a PWD, because you were alleged to be having AIDS, or because you are a member of a cause-oriented group. We are going to fight all of these kinds of discrimination. That should really be the principle under which this present commission should be working on, simply because that is the call of the day. Likewise, when it comes to environmental protection, the COMELEC will be at the forefront. Our best approach will be to establish a committee, a task force, and at the same time to educate our Filipino people. But you know, the problem right now with our election is not only vote buying. The number one problem really is misinformation, disinformation, and fake news. Even the Pope have said that misinformation is now the problem of the world. Even in all your countries, misinformation, disinformation is so problematic because it's not only infesting the mainstream media, but more particularly in social media. And so the question is actually, how do you fight misinformation, disinformation, and fake news? When You see, in our country, there is this principle that criminal laws cannot go beyond the country's territory. What if the misinformation, disinformation, or fake news is committed outside the Philippine jurisdiction? How can we prosecute? How can we arrest? What if it is committed by a foreign entity as against a candidate or against the institution, as against the integrity of our election? We are honestly saying to all of you, we do not have the means, we do not have the resources, we do not have the technical expertise to counter all of this. That's the reason why we're here. We wanted to ask assistance from all of you. Through your governments, we're hoping that you'll be able to help the commission election, at least in our fight against disinformation, misinformation, and fake news. Lucky for us, the platforms such as X, Meta, and such other platforms had offered their assistance to the commission election. They said that if the COMELEC will be the one to report to them, they are going to immediately take down any misinformation, disinformation, or fake news. Otherwise, it will take forever before a post can be taken down, simply because, take note, in the Philippines, perhaps such as yours also, in your country, there is no such thing as social media regulation law. And that is very problematic. How do you expect the Philippine Electoral Commission to regulate social media when there is no law? Under our Constitution, although the COMELEC is an independent constitutional body, you have to understand, Your Excellencies, that our duty is merely to enforce and administer election laws. We do not have the duty to promulgate laws. And so that is a problem on our part, because any attempt on the part of the Commission on Election to regulate something will be construed as infringing on a purely a territory of another branch of government. And that's the reason why we have been asking Congress not only to revise our electoral laws, but likewise to pass certain measures that will ensure equal opportunity for all in the field of election. Now let's discuss about the Bangsamoro, which is actually something which is close to the hearts of everyone here. Of course, the Bangsamoro was postponed. Bangsamoro election was postponed to October 13. To us, that is a great relief, because you have to understand that we are going to have a super election year here in 2025. We're going to have the May 12, 2025 national and local elections. We're going to likewise conduct the Bangsamoro parliamentary election by the 13th of October. And by December 1, we're going to conduct the barangay and SK election, the village polls. And so the COMELEC is facing a gargantuan task of ensuring that the election is free, orderly, honest, credible, and acceptable to everyone. About the Bangsamoro parliamentary election, the President had recently appointed the ad interim, or the interim chief minister of the Bangsamoro. We honestly believe that there is good faith when the Congress, including the President, had postponed the election to about 6 months or 5 to 6 months after the May 2025 election. It will give the COMELEC some elbow room to concentrate our people, to concentrate the security forces in the Bangsamoro. We will readily admit that indeed Bangsamoro is a special case. The withdrawal of Sulu via a decision of the Supreme Court is actually a great relief likewise. But however, there is a lot of jobs to be done by the present Bangsamoro. You see, the purpose of the postponement is for the Bangsamoro to be able to enact very important pieces of legislation, one of which is the redistribution and the reallocation of the 7 seats given to the province of Sulu, which according to the Supreme Court does not belong anymore to the Bangsamoro. The question now is, will the present parliament in the Bangsamoro be able to redistribute the 7 seats allocated originally for Sulu? That is our problem. That is our problem because we need such a legislation before the start of June of 2025. You know why? because we are in quandary as to whether we are going to allow the filing of the certificates of candidacy once again for the Bangsamoro. We already filed, they already filed their COCs last November 4 to 9. But because they are going to redistribute the 7, then properly we have to likewise open the filing of the certificates of candidacy. And because you have to understand also that the election in the Bangsamoro is automated and it is not to be conducted manually. That being the case, we have to print the ballots sometime by July to August so that we'll be able to distribute to the Bangsamoro all election paraphernalia come September. So we are in a very tight schedule here. And so we are hoping that again, they will likewise be working double time to ensure that these pieces of legislation, including the amendment of the election code of the Bangsamoro, the amendment of the administrative code, and the amendment of the local government code will be in place before the conduct of the election by October 13. You see, the barangay SK election of December is actually to be conducted manually. In the COMELEC right now, we are modernizing the election. We are using modern technology to enhance the voting experience of our people. We have the new machine, the new voting and counting machine. We're hoping to be able to ensure greater transparency. The key word is really transparency. Voters should be able to answer the question, or this machine should be able to answer the question, was my vote really counted by the machine? We introduce a lot of features which will ensure that the voters will be able to verify whether the votes are really counted and whether our citizens' arm and interest groups and everyone can counter-check and monitor and verify whether indeed the results are credible. Likewise, for your information, we are going to allow certain members of our electorate to vote in the malls, because we honestly believe that the elementary schools where they are going to vote are so small, that's why they are going to vote in malls likewise. And so